to Amara, our amazing sister. Happy birthday!
I can't believe you did this. Thank you both so much.
We love you. Enjoy your day. Happy birthday, Amara!
Oh my goodness. Thank you so much. We are so happy to celebrate with you.
The sun rose gently over the small town of Ibadan, painting the rooftops with gold. Birds sang on power lines, and the sound of children playing echoed through the narrow streets. It was a beautiful morning, the kind that felt full of promise. Inside a cozy, colorful house at the end of the lane, Amara was just waking up. She stretched under the covers, a smile tugging at her lips as the scent of fried plantains drifted through the air. It was her birthday, her favorite day of the year. Downstairs, laughter and whispers filled the room. Her family and close friends moved quickly, decorating the small living room with balloons and ribbons. A big banner hung across the wall. "Happy birthday, Amara!" Kemi, her best friend since childhood, adjusted a bunch of flowers and grinned. "She'll cry when she sees this," she whispered. In the kitchen, Amara's husband, Tunda, stood over the stove. He looked every bit the loving husband. Tall, confident, with a smile that could calm storms. Yet beneath that charm, something seemed distant. His eyes looked tired, distracted, as if his mind was elsewhere. When Amara finally came downstairs, everyone shouted, "Surprise!" Her face lit up. She laughed, covering her mouth in joy. The celebration was simple but heartfelt. Laughter, dancing, the smell of home-cooked jollof rice and fried chicken filling the air. Amara felt surrounded by love, though she couldn't ignore how Tunda kept checking his phone when he thought no one was watching. Still, she brushed the thought away. "Not today," she told herself. "Today, I'll just be happy." Later, after the cake was cut and the room filled with music, her eyes drifted to a small table where the birthday gifts sat neatly arranged. Perfumes, cards, a few boxes wrapped in colorful paper, and one that stood out. It was small, wrapped in gold paper, with no name tag. The light from the window caught its surface, making it shimmer almost too brightly. Amara smiled, unaware that inside that tiny box lay the secret that would shatter her perfect world. As the camera, or narration, lingers on the box, the laughter around her fades into silence. The music slows, and the gold wrapping glows softly, like a warning. The party was over. Balloons hung limp from the ceiling, and the scent of melted wax from the candles still lingered in the air. Empty plates and cups were scattered across the table, a sign of laughter and love that had filled the house just hours ago. Amara sat alone on the sofa, barefoot, a blanket draped over her shoulders. Her heart was full, but her body was tired. The noise of celebration had faded, leaving behind the soft hum of silence. She looked at the pile of birthday gifts beside her. A small smile touched her lips as she began to unwrap them. One by one. Perfumes. A handbag from Kemi. A book from her younger brother. A beautiful scarf from her mother. Each gift was wrapped with care. Each card filled with warm words. Her eyes glistened as she read them, feeling loved, seen, and cherished. Then her gaze fell on the gold box. It sat quietly at the edge of the table, untouched. No name tag, no card. Just a smooth golden paper that shimmered faintly in the low light. Amara frowned slightly. "Who brought this one?" she whispered to herself. She picked it up. It felt heavier than it looked. Not heavy like metal, but heavy like meaning. Like something that carried weight beyond its size. She hesitated for a moment. Her instincts whispered something, a faint unease, but curiosity won. She slowly peeled off the wrapping paper. Inside, a small velvet box. She opened it. A silver locket glimmered under the light. Simple, elegant, old-fashioned. The kind of jewelry that seemed to hold memories, not fashion. Beside it was a folded letter. Her fingers trembled slightly as she opened the note. You deserve to know the truth. That was all it said on the first line. Neat handwriting, unfamiliar, deliberate. Amara blinked, confused. Her breath caught in her chest as she read the rest of the message. Lines that spoke of secrets, betrayal, and a man living two lives. Her eyes moved faster, disbelief rising with every word. Anand, man you call your husband is not who you think he is. He belongs to another family. You were never his only wife. Trafi. Paper slipped from her hand. Her heart pounded. For a long moment, she just stared at the locket, unsure if she should even touch it again. But something inside her, something desperate, pushed her forward. She opened it. Inside were two tiny photographs. One, unmistakably Tunde, smiling the way he always did. That same gentle curve of his lips. The other, a woman she didn't recognize. But the shock wasn't just in her beauty. It was in the resemblance. The woman looked eerily, hauntingly, like Amara herself. Same brown eyes, same smile, even the same hairstyle she once wore years ago. Amara's fingers went cold. Her breath trembled. Who are you? She whispered to the photograph, voice shaking. She picked up the letter again, reading the last few lines that sent shivers through her. Ask him about Ngozi. Ask him about the daughter he never told you about. The letter ended there. No name, no address, no clue who sent it. The sound of the ticking wall clock suddenly grew louder, echoing through the silent room. Amara sat frozen, staring at the locket, her mind spinning. Could this be true? Was it a cruel joke? A lie? Or was it the truth she never saw coming? Her eyes welled up as she looked around the empty house. The decorations, the leftover cake, the balloons, all of it suddenly feeling false, hollow. The laughter of the day faded into memory, replaced by a deep, aching silence. Amara clutched the locket to her chest, unaware that this tiny silver piece, this unwanted birthday gift, had just begun to tear her world apart. Amara hadn't slept. The night dragged on like a long, cruel dream, her mind replaying the words from the letter over and over. You were never his only wife. Ask him about Ngozi. She sat on the edge of the bed, still wearing her nightrobe, her eyes swollen from tears. The locket rested in her palm, cold, silent, accusing. From downstairs, she heard Tunda moving around, the sound of running water, a door closing. Her heart tightened. The man she loved, the man she trusted completely. Was he really living a double life? For a moment, she wanted to tear up the letter, throw away the locket, and pretend none of it ever happened. But the image of that woman, the one who looked so much like her, wouldn't leave her mind. She stood up slowly, clutching the locket like a weapon, and walked downstairs. Cut 2. The kitchen. Tunde stands by the counter, sipping coffee, scrolling through his phone. Good morning, beautiful, he said without looking up. Amara didn't answer right away. She studied him, his calm smile, his easy tone, his familiar warmth. Everything about him seemed normal, and yet now she could see cracks forming in that perfect picture. Finally, she spoke, her voice quiet but steady. Tunde, who is Ngozi? He froze. The spoon in his hand clinked against the cup. He looked up, frowning. What? I said, who is Ngozi? She repeated, her voice firmer this time. Confusion flashed across his face, quickly replaced by irritation. I don't know what you're talking about, Amara. Is this some kind of joke? Her heart ached at the sound of his denial. Then what's this? She placed the locket and letter on the table. He glanced at them briefly, then scoffed. Where did you get that? Someone is trying to mess with you. Tunde, don't lie to me. Her voice trembled. I saw her picture. She looks just like me. The letter said, you have a daughter. That's enough, he snapped, slamming his hand on the table. The sudden outburst made her flinch. For a second, the mask slipped. The calm, gentle husband replaced by someone cold, defensive, cornered. Silence filled the kitchen. Tunde ran a hand over his face, sighing heavily. Amara, you can't believe every stupid letter someone sends you. You know how people are. Jealous. Wicked. They want to destroy happy homes. But his words rang hollow. His eyes wouldn't meet hers. Amara felt a lump rise in her throat. The man standing before her wasn't the same person she thought she knew. That morning, breakfast burned on the stove, and the smell of smoke filled the air. A quiet echo of their crumbling trust. Later that day, Amara meets her best friend, Kemi, at a nearby cafe. Kemi listened in disbelief as Amara told her everything. When she was done, Kemi sighed deeply. Amara, I don't know what to say, but please, be careful. Secrets like this, they don't stay buried without reason. If it's true, finding out could break you. Amara looked out the window, watching strangers pass by, each of them living their lives, unaware that hers was falling apart. If it's true, she whispered, I need to know. I need to know who I've been living with all these years. Montage. Slow, tense background music. Over the next few days, Amara's unease grew. She started noticing things she once ignored. Tunde's phone always locked, even in the house. His sudden late-night work calls, unexplained trips, with vague excuses. A new number saved under a man's name that never seemed to call during the day, only at night. She began to investigate quietly, scrolling through his old photos, checking bills, scanning his emails when he wasn't around. Every new clue felt like a pinprick in her heart. The locket sat on her dressing table, a constant reminder. Sometimes she would pick it up and just stare at the faces inside. His smile, the other woman's soft eyes, wondering how many lies lived behind those smiles. Scene. One night, Amara sits alone on her bed, the room dimly lit. She whispers to herself, maybe I don't want to know. But deep down, she knows she has already crossed the line. The truth is coming, and it's no longer a matter of if, it's only a matter of when. The locket gleams faintly in the dark, a small silver crack in the glass of her perfect life. Days had passed since that first confrontation. Tunde's coldness grew heavier with each sunrise. He had stopped trying to explain, stopped even pretending to care. And though Amara still cooked, cleaned, and smiled through the motions of life, her heart was no longer in any of it. Every night, she replayed the letter in her mind. Ask him about Ngozi. So she began to search. At first, it was just curiosity, a name typed into a search bar. But curiosity soon became obsession. She scrolled through social media, browsed mutual contacts, and scanned through old photos tagged near Tunde's office events. Then, one night, she found her, a woman named Ngozi Okafor, a schoolteacher in another city, Enugu. Her face stopped Amara's breath. The same soft features, the same eyes, and in her profile picture, Ngozi was holding a little girl, no older than 6, whose smile looked painfully familiar. Amara's heart clenched. The child's dimples, her bright eyes. She looked just like Tunde. Her hands began to tremble. She clicked through more photos, birthdays, family outings, quiet moments. And there he was, in one of the old posts, hidden in the background, half his face turned away. But unmistakable. Tunde, standing beside Ngozi, holding her hand. Scene transitions. Next morning. Amara stood before her mirror, staring at her reflection. Her eyes were hollow, her lips dry. "I need to know," she whispered. She packed a small bag, grabbed her car keys, and left before sunrise. The road to Enugu stretched endlessly, miles of red dust and tall trees flashing past her window. The wind whipped her hair as she drove, but her thoughts were louder than the engine. What if it's true? What if he really has another family? And what if they never knew about me? Every mile carried the weight of that truth she wasn't ready to face. Scene: Ngozi's school. Afternoon. Children ran and laughed through the courtyard. Their laughter echoed, sweet and innocent. Amara parked across the street, her hands gripping the steering wheel, heart pounding in her chest. Through the open school gate, she saw Ngozi, in a neat blue dress, smiling as she dismissed her students. Her movements were calm, graceful, genuine. She looked kind. There was no arrogance in her, no sign of deceit. And then the little girl ran into Ngozi's arms. "Mommy!" Amara's throat tightened. She couldn't breathe. She waited until most of the children were gone, then stepped out of her car, her legs weak beneath her. Scene: Confrontation outside the school. Ngozi turned as Amara approached. There was confusion in her eyes at first, then cautious curiosity. "Can I help you?" Ngozi asked softly. Amara hesitated. For a moment, she couldn't speak. Her lips quivered, and tears stung her eyes. Finally, she whispered, "You don't know me, but we share something. His name is Tunde." The color drained from Ngozi's face. She took a small step back, her hand gripping her daughter's shoulder protectively. "What did you say?" Amara's voice broke. "He's my husband." The silence that followed felt endless. Only the wind moved between them. Ngozi shook her head slowly. "That can't be true. We've been together for 7 years. He's my husband." The world around Amara tilted. The pain in her chest spread like fire. They both stood there, 2 women, 2 lives, staring at each other, each seeing her own reflection in the other's eyes. Scene: a small cafe nearby, later that day. They sat across from each other, both trembling, both shattered. The child sat beside Ngozi, sipping juice, unaware of the storm swirling around her. As they spoke, the truth unfolded piece by piece. Tunde had lied to both of them. He had built 2 homes, 2 lives, each carefully separated by distance and deceit. Ngozi's voice trembled. "He said he was always away for business. I trusted him." Amara wiped her tears. "I thought I was the only one. I thought he loved me." And in that shared pain, something unexpected happened. Understanding. They didn't see enemies sitting across from them. They saw victims of the same betrayal. Ngozi reached across the table and gently touched Amara's hand. "I didn't know," she whispered. "I know," Amara said softly. "Neither did I." The 2 women sat in silence, the weight of truth pressing down. And for the first time, the name Tunde no longer felt like love. It felt like poison. Scene closes. Evening light fading. As Amara drove back home, her eyes were filled with tears, but her heart carried a strange calm. She had found the truth, and the woman in the locket was no longer a stranger. Now she knew who Ngozi was, and she knew what Tunde had done. But the hardest part was still to come, because when she got home, she would have to face him. Thunder rolled through the sky as Amara's car pulled into the driveway. She turned off the ignition but didn't move. The rain drummed against the windshield like a heartbeat. Steady, relentless, impossible to ignore. Her reflection in the glass looked like someone else, a woman hollowed by truth, aged by betrayal. For a moment, she wondered if she even had the strength to walk inside. But she had to. The lies had lived too long in her house. Scene inside the living room, dimly lit, the house eerily quiet. Tunda sat on the couch, scrolling through his phone as if nothing had changed. When he looked up and saw Amara standing there, drenched from the rain, his face shifted. Surprise, then guilt, then a flash of anger. "Where have you been?" he asked sharply. "You left without saying anything." Amara dropped her wet bag onto the floor. "I went to see Ngozi." The silence that followed was deafening. Tunde froze. The color drained from his face. "I know everything," she said, her voice trembling. "The lies, the child, the other home." He stood abruptly, his chest heaving. "Amara, it's not what you think. Don't you dare," she snapped, tears spilling down her cheeks. "Don't you dare tell me it's not what I think. I saw you in her photos. I saw your daughter." Tunde's mouth opened, but no words came. His shoulders sagged. And, for the first time, she saw him for what he was. Not the confident man she fell in love with, but a coward hiding behind charm. Scene. The confrontation intensifies. Amara took a step closer, her voice shaking but firm. "You made me believe in you. You let me build a life around a lie. Do you know what that does to someone?" Tunde tried to reach for her hand, but she pulled away. "I never meant to hurt you," he said weakly. "It just happened. I loved you both. I didn't know how to stop." Amara laughed bitterly through tears. "You loved us both? That's not love, Tunde. That's greed." Her words hit him like thunder. He ran a hand through his hair, pacing. "You don't understand. I was trapped. I couldn't leave either of you. Ngozi needed me. You were my home." Amara's eyes hardened. "No, I was your cover." Scene. The truth collapses. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. The storm outside grew louder, lightning flashing through the curtains. Finally, Tunde sank onto the couch, defeated. "I didn't think it would come to this," he murmured. "It always does," Amara said quietly. "Lies always lead here." She walked to the cabinet and pulled out a small gold box, the same one that started it all. She placed it on the table between them. "Do you remember this?" Tunde's eyes flickered. "Where did you get that?" "It came to me on my birthday," she said softly. "No name, no card. Just a note that told me the truth. Someone wanted me to know." For the first time, fear filled his eyes. "Who sent it?" Amara shook her head. "Does it matter? The truth found its way home, and that's all that matters." Scene. The unraveling. Tunde stood, trying to regain control. "Amara, please. We can fix this. I'll leave her. I'll make it right." She looked at him, eyes glistening but firm. "You can't fix what never should have been broken." He reached out again, desperate now. "Don't do this. You're my wife." Amara stepped back, her voice calm, resolute. "No, Tunde. I was your victim." The weight of her words hung in the air like a verdict. Tunde sank back into his seat, his face buried in his hands. The storm outside mirrored the chaos within. The thunder, the rain, the crash of everything falling apart. Scene. Amara's liberation. She walked to the window, looking out into the night. The rain had begun to slow, softening into a steady rhythm. Without turning, she said, "Tomorrow, I'm leaving. I'll send someone for my things." Tunde looked up, eyes wide. "Amara, please." But she was already walking away. At the doorway, she paused. "I hope one day you realize what you destroyed. Not just our marriage, but the part of me that trusted love blindly." And with that, she left him, standing alone in the ruins of his lies. Scene. Closing moment of the chapter. Amara stepped into the quiet street. The air was cool and clean after the storm. She took a deep breath, the kind that tasted like freedom and pain all at once. She didn't know where she would go, or how she would start again. But she knew one thing. she would never let another man define her worth. As she walked into the night, lightning flashed behind her, illuminating the house she once called home. Inside, Tunde sat in darkness, surrounded by silence. His phone buzzed on the table. A message from Ngozi. He didn't open it. He just stared at the gold box on the table, the symbol of his downfall. Rain poured endlessly over the quiet streets. Amara sat in her car a few blocks from home, engine off, hands trembling on the steering wheel. The confrontation replayed in her mind. Every word, every tear, every broken promise. She didn't know how long she sat there. Minutes? Hours? Time had lost meaning. At last, she stepped out of the car, her feet sinking into puddles. The storm had softened, but thunder still rumbled in the distance, like the echo of everything she'd lost. Seen inside Amara's family home. Early dawn. Her mother, Mama Chinyere, opened the door, surprise washing over her tired face. "Amara, my child, what happened?" Amara's lips quivered. "Mama." Everything fell apart. Mama Chinyere wrapped her in a hug, her warmth breaking Amara's fragile restraint. She finally cried. Deep, uncontrollable sobs that came from somewhere buried and raw. Through the tears, she whispered, "He lied, Mama, about everything." Her mother stroked her hair gently. "Hush, my daughter. No man's lie can destroy who you are." But Amara wasn't sure she believed that anymore. Scene. Morning. A knock at the door. The rain had stopped, replaced by a gray stillness. Amara sat on the couch, wrapped in a shawl, eyes swollen from crying. Then, a knock. 3 slow, heavy knocks. Mama Chinyere went to open it. 2 uniformed police officers stood outside. Their hats dripped with rainwater. Their expressions were somber. "Are you Mrs. Amara Tunde?" one asked gently. Amara stood slowly. "Yes, that's me," the officer sighed. "Ma'am, there's been an accident." Her world froze. Scene. Outside the hospital morgue. Amara's footsteps echoed down the cold hallway. The air smelled of disinfectant and sorrow. Mama Chinyere held her arm, whispering prayers under her breath. When they reached the door, the officer hesitated. "You don't have to see him if you're not ready." Amara swallowed hard. "I need to." The sheet was pulled back just enough for her to see his face. Pale, lifeless, unfamiliar. Tunde. Her breath caught in her throat. The man who had lied, betrayed, and broken her, gone in an instant. Tears rolled silently down her cheeks, but they were not only for him. They were for everything they'd lost. The love that had started so pure, the dreams that never stood a chance. Scene. Back at home. Later that day. The house was filled with quiet murmurs and the faint scent of candle wax. Neighbors came and went, whispering condolences, exchanging glances of pity. "Such a tragedy," one woman murmured. "And after all those rumors, too." The whispers pierced through Amara like tiny knives. She sat alone in her room, staring at the silver locket, the cursed gift that had begun it all. Her fingers traced the edges as tears fell onto its surface. She opened it slowly. 2 faces stared back, Tunde and Ngozi. With a shaking breath, she whispered, "You destroyed everything, Tunde, but you were still a part of me." Her heart broke again, not from anger this time, but from the strange emptiness that came after it. Scene. Late evening. A call from Ngozi. Amara's phone buzzed softly. She hesitated before answering. Ngozi's voice was gentle, trembling. "I heard about Tunde. I'm so sorry." There was silence for a moment. Both women breathed, both understanding what words could not. Amara's voice cracked. How do we grieve someone who lied to us both? Ngozi sighed. Maybe by remembering the little good he had left, and forgiving the rest. Amara closed her eyes. For the first time, the anger began to loosen its grip on her chest. Scene, closing visual. Amara at the window. Night fell softly. The candles flickered in the dim light. Amara stood by the window, the locket still in her hand. Outside, the moonlight broke through the clouds, silver and calm after the storm. She whispered to herself, "I will not let this pain define me." As the scene faded, her reflection in the glass showed not a broken woman, but one beginning to heal. It had been 3 weeks since Tunda's funeral. The house was quieter than ever. No footsteps, no laughter, no calls asking where he left his car keys. Only silence, heavy and hollow. Amara moved through the rooms like a shadow. Each object seemed to carry a memory. The photo on the wall, the half-empty mug he used every morning, the scent of his cologne fading slowly from their bedroom. Sometimes, grief came like a storm, sudden and violent. Other times, it was a quiet ache that followed her everywhere. But today, something inside her felt different. She didn't wake up crying. She didn't feel angry. She just felt still. Scene. Amara receives a message on her phone. It was from Ngozi. Just 4 words. "Can we talk today?" For a moment, Amara hesitated. Part of her wanted to delete the message and move on. But another part, the part that still sought meaning in all the pain, whispered, "Go," she replied simply. "Yes." Where? Scene, Ngozi's home. A modest, warm house in a nearby town. Ngozi opened the door with a soft smile. She looked tired, her eyes swollen from sleepless nights. Yet, there was kindness in her face. They stood silently for a moment. 2 women who once shared the same man, now bound by the same wound. "Thank you for coming," Ngozi said quietly. Amara nodded. "I wasn't sure if I could, but I'm glad I did." As they sat, a little girl ran into the room, about 6 years old, bright eyes, curly hair, holding a small toy doll. "Mama, look, I drew this." Ngozi smiled warmly. "Come, say hello to Auntie Amara." The child turned shyly, her big eyes curious. "Hello, Auntie." Amara's heart softened instantly. The child's smile, it was Tunda's smile. It hit her like a wave, not of pain, but of bittersweet realization. Scene. The child sits with Amara, showing her drawings. "This is my daddy," the girl said proudly, pointing to a stick figure in her picture. "He said he'd buy me a big bike when I turned 7. Ngozi's eyes darkened for a moment. Amara felt her throat tighten. She forced a smile. "He loved you very much," she said softly. The little girl nodded, completely unaware of the weight those words carried. Her innocence was like sunlight through clouds, pure, untouched by the lies that had broken the adults around her. For the first time since everything fell apart, Amara felt peace, not because she forgot, but because she understood. Scene, Amara and Ngozi sitting on the porch later that afternoon. The child played nearby, her laughter echoing through the yard. Ngozi spoke first, her voice low. "She doesn't know what happened. I told her father went to heaven." Amara nodded slowly. "Maybe that's enough for now. Some truths don't need to hurt the innocent." There was a long silence, the kind that heals instead of wounds. Ngozi turned to her, tears glistening in her eyes. "I hated you at first, you know. But then I realized we were both victims of his lies." Amara reached over, taking her hand gently. "We were, but we don't have to stay broken." Ngozi smiled faintly. "I've been thinking, maybe we can do something good. For the women who've gone through what we did." Amara looked at her, surprised but hopeful. "A foundation? Something to help single mothers, maybe?" "Yes," Ngozi said. We can name it after him, not to honor him, but to redeem what was lost. Amara smiled through tears, turning pain into purpose. Scene, closing visual, evening light. As Amara prepared to leave, the little girl ran up and hugged her tightly. "Bye, Auntie Amara. Come again!" Amara knelt down, smiling. "I will, sweetheart." The child handed her a small drawing, a picture of 3 people holding hands under a bright sun. "Who's this?" Amara asked softly. "You, Mama, and me." The girl giggled. "We're happy." Amara's eyes filled with tears. Not of sorrow this time, but of something gentle, something new. She looked at the picture again and whispered, "Yes, we are." As she walked away, the sun dipped low, painting the world in gold. The locket around her neck caught the light, no longer a symbol of betrayal, but of survival. A year had passed since the day everything fell apart. The house that once echoed with grief now breathed calm. Amara stood before the mirror, fastening a silver locket around her neck. It was the same locket that once broke her world apart. But now, it carried something new. Inside were 2 photos, one of herself and one of Ngozi. 2 women who had risen from the ashes of betrayal to rebuild their lives together. She smiled softly at her reflection, no longer the woman defined by heartbreak, but one reborn from it. Scene, outside, a small community center decorated with balloons and banners. Children's laughter filled the air. Women gathered around tables, chatting, smiling, sharing food. A large sign hung above the entrance. The Tunda Foundation, for single mothers and women of strength. Amara stood at the entrance, greeting guests as they arrived. Ngozi stood beside her, holding Chika's hand. Their bond was quiet, but strong, built not on shared pain, but on shared healing. "Can you believe it's been a year?" Ngozi said, glancing at her. Amara nodded. "Sometimes it feels like yesterday, and other times, like another lifetime." Chika ran off to play with the other kids, her laughter echoing through the hall, pure and free. Amara watched her fondly. "She reminds me that life always finds a way to bloom again." Ngozi smiled. "And so do we." Scene, inside the community center, a small stage. Amara stepped up to a microphone as the crowd quieted. Her heart pounded, but this time, not with fear. "Thank you all for being here," she began. "When this journey started, I was broken, lost in anger, confusion, and grief. But along the way, I learned something powerful." She paused, her eyes soft with emotion. "Pain doesn't have to destroy us. Sometimes it shapes us into something stronger, something new. This foundation isn't just about one man's story. It's about every woman who ever had to pick herself up and start again." The audience nodded, many wiping tears. Amara smiled, glancing at Ngozi, who stood in the front row. "I found a sister where I once saw a rival, and I found peace where I thought I'd only find scars." A soft round of applause followed. Scene, later that evening, Amara's home. The day's event had ended. The house was warm and peaceful. Amara sat by her window, writing in her journal, the same one she had kept through her darkest days. She wrote slowly, her pen gliding across the page. "Some gifts break you to reveal what's inside. Strength, courage, and truth. I once thought my life ended with betrayal, but now I see it began with forgiveness. The woman I was, she loved deeply. The woman I am, she loves wisely." She closed the journal, tears glimmering in her eyes, not of sadness, but gratitude. Scene, final visual, Amara walking outside at sunset. She stepped out onto the quiet street. The golden evening light wrapped around her like an embrace. Children played in the distance. The sound of laughter carried by the breeze. Amara lifted her face toward the sky, eyes closed, breathing in deeply. For the first time in a long time, her heart felt light. She whispered softly, "Thank you, God, for the breaking and for the rebuilding." As she walked down the road, the sun dipped low behind her, painting her silhouette in gold. The locket around her neck caught the last light, shining like a small piece of redemption.